You're watching UATV News. My name is Ina Kosinska. Good evening. Ukraine and Georgia plan to strengthen cooperation in the sphere of security of the Black Sea region. This was stated by President Volodymyr Zelenskyy during a joint briefing with Georgia President Salome Zourabichvili. On June 23rd, she paid an official visit to Ukraine. Both countries are united by a common goal of acquiring membership in the European Union and NATO. Our journalists know the details of the meeting.
Security cooperation in the Black Sea region is one of the priority tasks for both countries. President Volodymyr Zelenskyy said this at a joint briefing with his Georgian counterpart Salome Zourabichvili.
The Black Sea should be a safe water area, free for trade and free for shipping. We strive to strengthen interaction between our countries, partner states in the Black Sea. We are actively working on the implementation of this initiative with Georgia and other neighbors. I hope that soon we will see some concrete progress.
In turn, Salome Zourabichvili noted that Ukraine and Georgia are also united by the desire to become part of the European Union and NATO.
We have the same common tasks and goals. This is the occupation of our territories, the way to the European Union, to NATO and development of regional cooperation. The occupation is the problem of our countries. It is a challenge. Russia should stop provocations.
Georgia also supports Ukraine's diplomatic initiative, namely the Crimean platform, and will definitely be represented at the summit in Kyiv in August, Salome Zourabichvili promised. The president of Georgia also met with Prime Minister of Ukraine Denis Shmyhal and talked about cooperation in cybersecurity, tourism and trade.
Today I am pleased to see that the political dialogue between our states is gaining momentum. Of course, we look forward to the development and further cooperation between our countries.
Mutual recognition of the vaccination documents, which will make it easier for citizens of both countries to cross the border, is on the mutual agenda as well. Experts also speak about the importance of partnership between Ukraine and Georgia. After all, confronting a common enemy together is more effective.
The first issue is further integration with the European Union. The second is economic contact, and the third is resistance to the Russian Federation. It is very important for the countries to emphasize that it is not a unique situation, that the Russian Federation considers this to be a part of its policy and continues acting in the same way.
In addition to synchronization of foreign policy, both countries need a common point of view on defense strategy, international experts note. They do not exclude the possibility of a military-political union between Kyiv and Tbilisi with the support of one of the NATO countries. Reported by Vadim Kramer and Yulia Hranovska, UATV News.
The Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe adopted a resolution requiring Russia to ensure the observance of the rights of the Crimean Tatars, comply with the norms of international law, and restore the territorial integrity of Ukraine. The delegates called on Moscow to release all those illegally detained and imprisoned in the occupied Crimea. According to Evgenia Kravchuk, deputy member of the permanent delegation of the Ukrainian parliament to the Assembly, the resolution is a victory for Ukraine, despite the attempts of the Russian Federation to remove the consideration of the resolution from the agenda. We were able to vote on the amendments that make this resolution tougher, and it says that this is a political persecution. That is, the Crimean Tatars are put into prison for not recognizing the annexation of Crimea. For some reasons, they participate in rallies and marches, that they are not convicted of any criminal offenses, but it is precisely political persecution. Therefore, we hope that this resolution will become one more stage in international courts in international disputes. Ukraine requests an explanation from officials in Berlin and Paris who supported the resumption of dialogue with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine intends to hold talks with the ambassadors of Germany and France. This was stated by Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba. He informed that Ukraine will examine in detail what is behind this initiative, why it has arisen right now, and what are the next steps of Berlin and Paris in this direction.
When friendly countries do something grossly violating your national interests, then you should be frank with them and just as tough defend your national interests. Therefore, we will talk with the ambassadors of Germany and France. We want to better understand the intentions pursued by Berlin and Paris.
To remind, earlier leaders of the EU member states did not accept the offer of Angela Merkel and Emmanuel Macron to halt official negotiations with Putin. According to European diplomats, after discussions, the proposal of the French president and German chancellor that Europe should conduct a direct dialogue with Russia was excluded from the final communiqué of the EU summit, which was held in Brussels. Highway to membership in the EU. On the eve of the anniversary of signing the economic part of the EU-Ukraine Association Agreement, official Kyiv analyzed the execution of the integration program. Has Ukraine moved towards membership in the European Union? Our correspondents have studied the issue.
6 years have passed since the association agreement between Ukraine and the European Union was signed. However, up to now, Ukraine is still not ready to join the EU. Some of the citizens think so.
We haven't approached Europe. Our mindset doesn't suit Europe. Our mindset is not ready to become part of the European set of mind.
Given Serbia is ready to join the EU, Ukraine's readiness could be even greater. Still, there are some European places in the country, but there are very few of them. Compared to the times when we'd started thinking about it, I guess yes. Our readiness is greater than 5 years ago. Maybe it's not a 100% readiness, but I guess there are 70% for sure.
But in fact, over the past 5 years of realization of an integration program, Ukraine has fulfilled more than half of tasks set. Within this time, they have organized almost 8,000 events and fulfilled nearly 2,000 tasks foreseen by the program.
As for me, it's a great sign because we're talking about more than half of the obligations already fulfilled, in spite of the complicated economic processes taking place throughout the world, including in the economically developed countries.
Ukraine has achieved the most significant progress in the following spheres: political dialogue, national security and defense, human rights, humanitarian policy, as well as state procurement and entrepreneurship. Moreover, the pace has considerably increased over the past couple of years.
In fact, over the past 5 years, we have approved more than 70 documents approaching us to the European Union. This dynamic is positively assessed in the EU because it means that we have fulfilled half of the tasks and obligations from our side. In turn, the European side keeps high pace of its work as well.
Nevertheless, much remains to be done in Ukraine, experts say. For instance, the European partners note that Ukraine still hasn't reached high results in financial cooperation and countering of the frauds. Besides, the issue of completion of the judicial reform remains open as well. Leaders of the EU member states plan to assess the pace of fulfillment of the association agreement by Ukraine. They are going to do it in the fall during the Ukraine-EU summit. Reported by Vadim Kramer and Valery Bakus, UATV News.
A new forum within the framework of the Ukraine 30 project started on June 22nd in Kyiv. This time it was dedicated to the health of Ukrainians. President Volodymyr Zelenskyy presented a new social program, Healthy Ukraine, at the forum. Its goal is to develop sports infrastructure and make an active lifestyle part of the Ukrainian mentality, Volodymyr Zelenskyy noted. Thousands of sports grounds will appear throughout the country. QR codes will be installed there, giving access to virtual coaches. It will be possible to download the app, choose the level of difficulty, and have access to various exercises.
Choosing the level of preparedness, you get some kind of sports. Perhaps you will be able to see the president by clicking on this video. The app includes everything necessary, all the rules for making the exercises. There we also have a certain infographic that makes it clear when this exercise demands a stride back or why does one have to bend knees first during this exercise. This is a kind of a virtual fitness instructor.
Health of the country is the health of children, forum participant state. Therefore, a Ukrainian child needs healthy and wholesome food, especially at school. As part of the school meals reform, the menu of the canteens will be improved. It will contain more vegetables, fruits and meat. They will also prescribe step-by-step recipes and technical maps for chiefs, which will greatly facilitate their work. In addition, the school kitchens will be renovated and modern equipment installed. The money will be provided by the state. The principals will only need to submit an application to the Ministry of Education. Last year, for the first time, an educational subvention was allocated in the amount of almost $14.5 million for the improvement of material and technical equipment. 1,809 Ukrainian schools out of 15,000 used the subventions. So this is not enough, and already this year a new subvention has been allocated. It is not only for food. This subvention can also be used to modernize the catering units and canteens. Ukraine is accelerating the immunization rates. Those who wish to be vaccinated will be able to do this on Thursdays and Fridays, not only on weekends. The acceleration is also associated with the threat of a new mutation of the coronavirus, the Delta strain. The first cases of its appearance in Ukraine were recorded this week in 2 patients in Kyiv. However, in addition to vaccination against coronavirus, it is important that Ukrainians remember they need to be vaccinated against other equally dangerous diseases, such as measles and polio. This was also discussed at the Ukraine 30 Healthy Ukraine Forum. This year, for the first time in the history of independent Ukraine, a bill appeared in the Parliament of Ukraine. It is our initiative for the nation's health committee to declare to the world that we are not creating a formal but a de jure public health system that will continue to regulate the approach to vaccination culture, trust in vaccination, and procurement of the necessary vaccine. The state is not going to nationalize the motor Sich enterprise. According to Vice Prime Minister of Ukraine, Minister for Strategic Industries Oleh Uruskiy, it is more about establishing control. The option of additional capitalization of the plant has been considered now. Prime Minister of Ukraine Denis Shmyhal has also spoken about improvement of the investment climate in Ukraine. According to him, the implementation of reforms in this direction contributes to Ukraine's progress on its way towards European and Euro-Atlantic integration.
Despite the crisis, our government continues promoting reforms. These reforms primarily affect our progress in European and transatlantic cooperation. At the same time, they are also associated with the improvement in the investment climate. Among them are the reform in corporate governance, judicial reform, reform of the security service of Ukraine, and further improvement of the anti-corruption system.
The military from 32 countries will take part in the joint Ukrainian-American exercises Sea Breeze 2021. This is a record number of participants in the history of naval drills, which will begin in the Black Sea region on June 28. This year, 5,000 servicemen, 32 ships, 40 aircrafts, 18 special operations units will participate in the drills. 876 new cases of coronavirus were recorded in Ukraine as of June 25th. The Ministry of Health notes a significant decrease in the number of infected. At the same time, more than 2,400 people have recovered. The entire Ukraine remains in the green quarantine zone. At the same time, the adaptive quarantine was extended until the end of summer, but restrictions have changed. How exactly? My colleagues know. All regions of Ukraine are in the green quarantine zone. Experts say the incidence rates are at the lowest. However, certain restrictions remain.
According to experts, such an adaptive quarantine is necessary, and it is difficult to predict the further spread of the virus and its new strains.
This adaptive quarantine is very important. We cannot relax. We must be at a certain level of readiness and should be able to quickly introduce a response system in case any new strain appears in Ukraine.
The quarantine was weakened for the cultural and entertainment sphere, bars, cafes and restaurants. As for stadiums and cinemas, 1/3 of the seats should be vacant. In addition, now everyone can attend public events, in case one has a negative test made at least 3 days before the event or confirmation of the full course of vaccination.
I've just left the theater in which I work. There are, of course, restrictions on seats, but thanks God, there are no more restrictions on rehearsals. We're rehearsing quite calmly. This is very cool because a series of premieres has already started.
As for the beaches, people are asked to maintain a social distance of 1.5 meters there. If this is not possible, one should wear a mask. Doctors insist that vaccination is the only way to protect oneself against severe forms of coronavirus disease. Over the past week, Ukrainians were administered 367,000 doses. Most of the jabs are made in Kyiv, Lviv and Dnipropetrovsk regions. Reported by Vadim Kromer and Yulia Bardish, UATV News. Sandy smog covered several regions of Ukraine on June 22nd. Meteorologists say this phenomenon was provoked by a dust storm from Central Asia. Another reason is abnormal heat, which came to Ukraine due to Zoe anticyclone from the European part of Russia. Throughout the country, the daytime temperature reaches 36 degrees Celsius. How to protect oneself from heat, our correspondents know. Because of the heat, the Kyiv city authorities have restricted the entry of trucks weighing over 24 tons. The petrol police controls the drivers. The heat in Ukraine will intensify by the end of the week, forecasters say. On Friday, the temperature in Kyiv reached plus 35 degrees Celsius. Short rains will take place only in the Carpathians. Throughout the country, the end of the week became dry, sunny and hot.
The highest temperatures are expected in the northern regions, including Kyiv region, Chernihiv region, and also in the northeastern and eastern parts of the country. It is there that temperatures in the daytime will rise to 34 and even in some places up to 36 degrees Celsius.
Doctors advise people with cardiovascular diseases and hypertensive patients not to stay in the sun for a long time. It is also necessary to drink clean, not carbonated, not sweet water. It is also worth monitoring one's ration.
Eat more fresh foods, vegetables, fruits. They add fluid to the body, supply it and provide nutrients. Caloric food is more difficult to digest in the heat, and its amount should be reduced.
It is also recommended to wear clothes made from natural fabrics of light shades. One should also avoid stuffy rooms. It's also necessary to moisturize face and neck. For those who are resting inside the water, doctors advise to adapt the body before plunging. Overheating can cause cramps when a person enters the water. Do not overheat, this is the first thing, and go into the water step by step, little by little contacting with water. If you are not feeling very confident, then you should not swim far. The heat is set to subside on Saturday-Sunday. Then cooler and humid Atlantic air will come to Ukraine from the west. The temperature will drop to comfortable 26-28 degrees Celsius. Reported by Volodymyr and Sich, UATV News.
What should one do during the emergency or in the outbreak of hostilities? An information brochure with a clearly defined algorithm of actions was presented in Kyiv. It was developed by the Center for Strategic Communications and Information Security under the Ministry of Culture and Information Policy of Ukraine. The idea for its creation appeared after the Kremlin increased presence of its troops near the Ukrainian border this spring. It contains a list of things and documents necessary in an emergency, behavior in an emergency, and an algorithm of actions that will help save lives. The brochure will be available in two formats, electronic and printed. This is a small, aware, short guide, but it is of practical value and should be kept at home and not hidden away. Do not throw it away, because the escalation in April along the borders of Ukraine demonstrated that the aggressor is not going to leave us alone. It is divided into sections. One section is about countering misinformation. In a critical situation, panic is the most dangerous enemy of a person. Here are 10 basic tips that people should follow to know where to check information, not to trust fakes and so on. And think critically, of course. Revived from the ruins, Kharkiv art plant Mechanica is the largest creative space in the east of Ukraine. The cultural center has been operating for 5 years. During this time, thousands of Ukrainian and foreign performers have participated in its venues. It all started on the territory of an abandoned workshop of a steam locomotive building plant. The story of the transformation of the abandoned plant into a cultural hub, further in the report. Here's the plate saying the Kharkiv City Steam Locomotive Plant. Steam locomotives were made here. All the relics we found we've put under the glass. One can find rare items and pieces of equipment dating back to the 19th century under the glass and along the walls of the main hall. They were preserved after reconstruction. The bar stand was decorated with a cast iron plate. 5 years ago, Serhiy Pilugin was looking all over the city for an abandoned territory for a new creative space. He received hundreds of rejections, but later he found exactly what he wanted, right in front of his eyes. I was born here and grew up here. At one time I was looking for a plant and it happened so that I didn't find anything, and then I recalled that there is a huge Malyshev plant. I started finding out what was happening to it. I learned that part of the territory on which we are now is the great-great-grandfather of the plant. So to say, it is 125 years old. We will celebrate the anniversary in September. Repairs were made throughout the year. Then they found investors. The workshop number 170 was cleared of debris, the structures were checked and minimal repairs were made. Many structural elements were repaired, some were left as decor and some are still working. We restored the cranes, put motors on them, and now we can move them using the control panel. The territory of the Mechanica art factory is almost 50,000 square meters. There are 3 halls, which can accommodate up to 20,000 people. If there are no events, then the entrance is free, and administrators conduct excursions for children. This is our popular space, the Dwish Mesh workshop. Large concerts are held here in the cold season. All this beauty, these sleds, were all found in the factory. That is, we have most of the elements that were used, that were here before. We have preserved this antiquity, upgraded it a little and painted.
The first concert was held here on October 1st, 2016. It was a trial. The artists were invited from Kyiv. Yulia Lipakova recalls how everything was organized.
The first experience was complicated. Of course, there were tears and nerves, and that's it. Volunteers helped. Everybody were very busy. Something was not ready, something was not completed in time, but everything was perfect for the visitors.
The former enterprise has now become not only a favorite place for parties and concerts, but also for tenants. Premises for offices and co-working spaces are occupied by 50 residents. Employees of the art space say that they are going to expand and equip abandoned premises in the neighborhood. They also plan to create a hostel, football and basketball courts. Reported by Vadim Kramer and Natalia Bilokudria, UATV News.
An African elephant, pink flamingos and even a shark. All of them are in the center of Kyiv in the Spivotchye Park. An exhibition Planet of the Wild Animals shows 3D figures of animals and birds. More than 500,000 flowers were used to make them. Our journalists know more about the masterpieces of flora art. Elephant, turtle, ostriches, crocodile, dolphins. Wild animals, birds, marine life can be found not only in the zoo, but also here, in the Spivotchye Park in Kyiv. The designers used several 100,000 plants to make these compositions, while the dolphins alone required 10,000 cineraria.
An elephant was also created from the seaside flower. These plants show the grey smoky color the best. Japanese spirea, blue ageratum, white and pink begonias were needed to make wild owls.
We haven't seen everything yet, but the owls are just great. They're all amazing. We still examine each plant.
Pink flamingos were made of dry cereal plants, which were painted on purpose. They imitate the plumage of birds. Designers compare the assembly of some elements with jewelry.
It was difficult to fit these structures. We planted it with fine sedum. It is very small, so our workers used tweezers to plant, and all these constructions were planted within 5 days.
The flower exhibition Planet of the Wild Animals is unique for Ukraine. As a rule, topiary sculptures from boxwood are created for decoration. Volume compositions with fresh flowers are more difficult to care for.
There is a frame in which a special substrate with moss is laid. Flowers are planted there and the plants are constantly watered abundantly so that they do not fade.
The organizers have been preparing for the exhibition for several months. This is a drawing of sketches, design, planting. One of the most difficult steps is creating animal frames.
The designers who worked on metal frames for about a month spent a month working on welding, working out the dimensions, detailing each structural element in order to create an animal.
The visitors tell that they saw some of the animals in a flower format for the first time.
I liked the octopus because it is made in such a way that a lot of work was put into it rather than into other animals.
I like the marine theme. I really love the sea, so everything concerning the sea, dolphins, a boat and octopus, it's very beautiful.
The aim of the exhibition is not only create bright photo zones, but also to remind about the problem of the extinction of wild animals. According to research, their number has decreased by 60% over the past 40 years. Reported by Vadim Kramer and Sich, UATV News.
That's all for this hour. More updates on our official website, YouTube, Twitter and Facebook pages. Thank you for staying with UATV channel. Goodbye.